Well now, glad you could make it back. Pull up a chair, get comfortable. I've got another one for you, fresh out of the memory banks. Been off the force for a while now, sitting here in my quiet little place, miles from the concrete canyons I used to patrol. For damn near 40 years, my beat was the heart of the big city. Seen it all, I thought. Murders, robberies, cons so elaborate they tie your stomach in knots. Every case, no matter how grisly or twisted, always came down to facts, evidence, human motives, greed, jealousy, anger, the usual suspects. Never a ghost, never a ghoul, just people doing terrible things to other people, or bad luck doing terrible things to good people. The city, see, it grinds you down, but it also sharpens you. It teaches you to look past the smoke and mirrors, past the panic and the headlines, straight to the ugly truth. Folks in the city, they too busy, too jaded, to believe in anything truly unexplainable. A body vanishes, must be a cover-up, a building as haunted, probably a leaky pipe or a squatting junkie. That's how my brain was wired. Logic, pure, unadulterated logic. It asks what kept me sane, I guess, when dealing with the insanity of human nature. But every now and then, a case would pop up that just stuck with you. One that, at first glance, made you wonder if maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't as neatly wrapped up as you thought. These weren't the big, flashy cases that made the evening news. Oh no, these were the quiet ones, the ones whispered about in small towns, out in the sticks, where the old ways died hard and the line between fact and folklore got blurry real fast. Places where people still believed in things that went bump in the night, in curses and spirits, in the land itself holding grudges. And when you, a city detective, a man of cold, hard facts, found yourself standing in the middle of one of these places, listening to tales of the impossible, well, it certainly made for a change of pace. Didn't he make me believe? Mind you, just made me dig harder, look closer, because where folks saw phantoms, I always found something far more concrete, usually far more chilling. Let me tell you about one such case. This next one didn't take me to a quiet farmhouse, but to the hushed, dusty halls of the Orion Theatre, an old grand dame of a building tucked away in a district that had seen better days. It had seen better days, sure, but it still held that old world charm mixed with a healthy dose of superstition. And boy, were they swimming in superstition when I got the call. The rumors started small, a whisper backstage, then spread like wildfire. Actors in the dressing rooms, they were seeing things in the mirrors, not just their own reflections, mind you, but their own faces, contorted, twisted into masks of pure horror. It wasn't just a quick glance. Some swore the images lingered, their features melting, eyes widening in silent screams. These weren't fleeting glimpses. These were vivid, terrifying hallucinations. Then it escalated. Some swore they saw the ghostly, pale face of a young actress, Amelia, who'd mysteriously died on that very stage decades ago, her death still shrouded in unanswered questions. They said her spirit was restless, vengeful, and now it was drawing people in, stealing their essence through the glass, trying to drag them into her eternal torment. The theater was in a full-blown panic. Rehearsals for the new, highly anticipated production were grinding to a halt, with actors refusing to enter the cursed dressing rooms. Even the seasoned veterans, who'd left off similar tales for years, found their nerves frayed. And the lead actress for the new show, a brilliant but high-strung star named Clara, was visibly shaken, barely able to perform. She'd been the most vocal about seeing things, claiming Amelia's spectral form had even reached out to her from the glass. Then, the true alarm, Clara vanished. 1 minute she was in her dressing room, preparing for a late-night, desperate rehearsal, trying to push through her fear. The next she was gone. Her purse was on the table, her phone charging, a half-eaten apple beside her script. No note, no signs of a struggle, no broken windows, no forced entry. Just an open door and the unsettling chill that permeated the room, feeding into the ghost narrative that was now completely out of control. That's when the theater manager, a frantic man, finally swallowed his pride and called for someone who dealt in facts, not phantoms. He'd tried everything else, even brought in a local priest for an impromptu blessing. Nothing worked. I walked into that theater, and you could feel the fear hanging in the air like a thick fog, palpable enough to choke on. Everyone, from the grizzled stagehands to the usually unflappable director, was utterly convinced Amelia's ghost had finally exacted its revenge and taken Clara. I listened, nodded, let them spin their yarns, and then I went straight for the dressing rooms. I looked at those mirrors. They were old, heavy, with ornate, dusty frames, reflecting the dim light of the backstage corridor. And I saw nothing but my own grizzled reflection. But I wasn't looking for ghosts. I was looking for anomalies. I checked the lighting, old incandescent bulbs, some flickering, some dead, but standard for a theater of this age. I checked the ventilation system, the heating, searching for anything that could cause a draft or strange sounds. Nothing obviously out of place. But as I ran my hand along the back of one of the particularly haunted mirrors, the one in Clara's dressing room, I felt it. A small, almost imperceptible groove in the wood of the frame, near the top corner, and it felt freshly made. Not old, worn damage, but crisp, like something had been meticulously, carefully pried open and then put back, almost seamlessly. It was hidden by the dust and the ornate carvings, but my fingertips found it. And then there was the smell, faint, almost masked by the theater's usual sense of old dust, cheap makeup, and stale perfume. But I caught it. A sharp, slightly metallic, almost acrid odor lingering specifically in Clara Vance's dressing room. It was chemical, distinct, and certainly not something you'd find in a typical makeup kit or dressing room supplies. It reminded me faintly of a photographic darkroom or maybe a print shop. I had a hunch, a strong one. I got the lab boys down there, not the ghost hunters with their EMF detectors and spirit boxes, but the real lab boys, the ones with their little kits and microscopes. While they were meticulously taking samples from the mirror frame and air samples from the room, I started talking to everyone. The theater manager, the stage staff, the costume designers, the entire cast, but especially Clara's understudy, a young woman named Brenda. Brenda seemed a little too calm amidst the chaos, almost eager. She also happened to be sharing the dressing room right next to Clara's, with a connecting door that was usually locked. The lab results came back surprisingly fast, given my gentle persuasion to expedite them. The residue I found near the groove on the mirror frame, traces of a specialized, fast-drying adhesive, a very particular type, often used in intricate model-making or for bonding delicate surfaces and microscopic fragments of an incredibly thin, highly reflective film, almost like a super-fine mylar. And that lingering chemical smell in Clara's room. Minute particles of a volatile photographic developer and a fixative solution, mixed with a very faint, almost odorless, aerosolized irritant, like a tear gas derivative, but far less potent. Now, the pieces started clicking into place with unsettling clarity. This wasn't a ghost. This was a setup, a very clever one, orchestrated by someone who knew their way around chemicals and optics. I looked into Brenda's background. She had a history in visual arts, specifically a niche interest in experimental photography and optical illusions. And she was known to be intensely ambitious, desperately craving Clara's role. The motive was clear as day. The method, cunningly subtle. Here as how it went down, plain as day. Brenda, fueled by ambition and resentment, had engineered the haunting. She'd gotten her hands on some high-quality, ultra-thin reflective film. Using her knowledge of photography and optics, she had meticulously and almost invisibly applied this film to the surface of some of the dressing room mirrors, particularly the one in Clara's room. This film, activated by a precisely timed, low-level, almost imperceptible light source, perhaps a small, hidden lead strip or even just an altered angle of the existing stage lighting when the main lights were off, directed from the adjacent room, created an optical illusion. It could reflect an image that wasn't directly in front of it, but from a carefully concealed side angle or even a projected image. The distorted faces and Amelia's ghost were either carefully prepared photographic slides of grotesque faces or even pre-filmed sequences of distorted facial expressions projected onto the semi-transparent film at specific, pre-programmed moments. The grooves on the mirror frames were from where she meticulously applied and then smoothed down the edges of this film, or perhaps where she had secured tiny, almost invisible projectors or light sources. The chemical smell in Clara's room. Brenda had been preparing a fast-acting, irritating but non-lethal chemical aerosol. When Clara was in her dressing room, deeply immersed in her script and already on edge, Brenda, likely through that connecting door between their dressing rooms or even a cleverly hidden vent, released a burst of this irritant. It wouldn't cause lasting harm, but it would cause immediate, severe discomfort, acute disorientation, a burning sensation in the eyes and throat, and temporary blurred vision. Clara, disoriented, terrified, and convinced the ghost was finally assaulting her, would have instinctively stumbled out of the room, desperate for help or fresh air, abandoning her belongings in her panic. Brenda, lying in wait, then intercepted Clara. Perhaps she administered a stronger sedative, or simply convinced the disoriented actress to hide out somewhere, telling her that the ghosts were targeting her specifically and she needed to disappear for a while for her own safety. Promising to get help, the ultimate goal was to make Clara vanish, solidify the belief in the haunting, and scare off any other potential competition. With Clara gone and the theater in turmoil, Brenda, the calm, reliable understudy, would be the natural, unquestioned choice for the lead role. The ghost of Amelia was just Brenda's carefully constructed smoke screen, playing expertly on the theater as pre-existing superstitions and the actors' already heightened emotional states. The panic of the actors, the haunted mirrors, Clara's disappearance, all designed to convince everyone that an ancient evil was at work, rather than a very modern, very human ambition. The authorities found Clara a few days later, disoriented but safe, hidden in a secluded apartment on the outskirts of town. Brenda had been visiting her, feeding her comforting lies and keeping her under some kind of mild sedation to prevent her from leaving or talking too clearly. It took some doing, but once the illusion was exposed and the physical evidence undeniable, Brenda confessed. She'd spent months perfecting the haunting, researching optical tricks and chemicals, all for a shot at stardom, ready to sabotage anyone in her way. No ghosts, just a ruthless ambition and a very clever stage manager. This case, the one with the haunted mirrors, it really opened my eyes to the lengths some folks will go to for what they want. It wasn't about blood and guts, not directly anyway. It was about psychological manipulation, about weaving a narrative so convincing, so terrifying, that it makes people ignore everything their senses are telling them. They wanted to believe in the ghost because it was a simpler explanation than facing the ugly truth of human jealousy. It has a chilling thought, isn't it? How easily fear and pre-existing beliefs can be exploited. This young woman, Brenda, she didn't need supernatural powers. She just needed a little bit of chemistry, some understanding of optics, and a deep knowledge of human nature, specifically how quickly people succumb to panic when faced with the unexplainable. She used the theater as own history, its legends, against itself. She laid out a carefully crafted lie, and everyone just walked right into it, convinced they were battling a specter. For me, it cemented the idea that the most dangerous monsters aren't the ones in old legends. They're the ones who look just like you and me, walking among us, planning, manipulating, and using our deepest fears against us. They don't need chains or moans. They just need a well-placed rumor, a clever trick, and an audience willing to be scared. So, the next time you hear a wild tale or see something that just doesn't quite add up, pause. Don't jump to conclusions, no matter how thrilling they might seem. Look for the small details, the subtle smell, the tiny groove, the one person who seems a little too calm in a sea of panic. Because often, the true horror isn't some ancient curse. It has the cold, calculated intent of another human being, and that, in my book, is far more terrifying. Until next time, keep your wits about you.